Yo, 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 yo. What's going on, fam? Excuse me. We back at it with another one, though. And, yeah, I mean, we got quite the heavy topic today. Excuse me, my bad. Have to clear out my voice, you know what I mean, when I come over here and start talking to y'all. But yeah, I just hope the family's doing well, man. I hope everybody out there is doing well. My autochthon indigenous people, my native copper color races, right? That was found right here in North and South America, right? Enjoying the islands, right? What's going on, fam? I hope everything's good with you, you know. I hope you out there with the feather dusters, you know, keeping your shoulders clean. You feel me? Just knocking stuff off. No matter what's going on, you know, don't let it get to you. You gotta stay focused. We gotta stay focused, man. It's a lot coming. It's a lot of things we need to be aware of, and it's best when you fighting an ongoing battle to keep your head up. You never know when that unexpected punch is coming, right? So I just hope all the family's doing well, man. I hope everybody's doing great. I'm doing great. It's windy today, so it must be something in the air, right? That natural mystic, right? Yeah, I hope everybody's doing well. To the tribe, you know what I mean? To the nation of Israel. If you waking up off your pillow, you know what I mean? You taking that young, you waking up, right? You stretching out, right? Yeah. I just hope everybody's cool, man. We about to get into it. Didn't want to start you off for too long, you know. Just getting acquainted, getting everybody settled in. Yeah. So, basically, this is a new series we're gonna be kicking off, which was inspired by some that I read, you know what I mean, and it basically had a lot. It made me interested. That's what I say. It had a lot of points that I figured, you know, could use some highlighting, and yeah, man, you know, to the bro out there, you know what I mean, to the fam, to the ock, right? If you watching this, or if any one of y'all know, you know, who I'm referring to, let them know, you know what I mean? Because basically, it was his question that sparked it, and it was dealing with Isaiah 53. So, yeah, fam, we're gonna get into it, alright? So, yeah, basically, he was asking the question, and I had to just look into it. I kind of already had a feeling, but I had to be sure, and I don't know. I just present it to y'all, and y'all tell me what y'all think. You know what I'm saying? And whatever suggestions y'all got, go ahead, throw them in the comment box, and we rock with it like that. I want to start off at chapter 52 though, because this is why I started off for more clarity. So we'll just get into it. Isaiah 52:1, and it says, "Awake, awake, put on thy strength, O Zion, put on thy beautiful garments, O Jerusalem, the holy city. For henceforth there shall no more come into thee the uncircumcised and the unclean. Shake thyself from the dust, arise and sit down, O Jerusalem. Loose thyself from the bands of thy neck, O captive daughter of Zion. For thus says the Most High, you have sold yourself for naught, and you shall be redeemed without money. For thus says the Most High God, my people went down aforetime into Egypt to sojourn there, and the Assyrian oppressed them without cause. Now therefore what have here, say the Most High, that my people is taken away for naught, that they that rule over them make them howl, saith the Most High, and my name continually every day blasphemy. Therefore my people shall know my name, therefore they shall know it in that day that I am he that doth speak. Behold, it is I. How beautiful upon the mountains are the feet of him that bringeth good tidings, that publisheth peace, that bringeth good tidings of good, that publish salvation. Thou sayest unto Zion, thy God reigneth. Thy watchmen shall lift up the voice, with the voice together shall they sing, for they shall see eye to eye when the Most High shall bring again Zion. Break forth into joy, sing together, yea, waste places of Jerusalem. For the Most High hath comforted his people, he hath redeemed Jerusalem. The Most High hath made bare his holy arm in the eyes of all the nations, and all the ends of the earth shall see the salvation of our God. Depart ye, go ye out from thence, touch not no unclean thing. Go ye out of the midst of her, be ye clean that bear the vessels of the Most High. For ye shall not go out with haste, nor go by flight, for the Most High will go before you, and the God of Israel will be your reward. Behold, my servant shall deal prudently, he shall be exalted and extolled, and be very high. As many were astonished at thee, his visage was so marred, more than any man, and his form more than the sons of men. So shall he sprinkle many nations, the kings shall shut their mouths at him. For that which had not been told them shall they see, and that which they had not heard shall they consider. Isaiah 52. Alright. So from there, we're going to go into Isaiah 53. Isaiah 53:1. Who hath believed our report, and to whom is the arm of the Most High revealed? For he shall grow up before him as a tender plant, and as a root out of a dry ground. And he hath no form nor comeliness when we shall see him. There is no beauty that we should desire him. He is despised and rejected of men, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. And we hid as if it were our faces from him. He was despised, and we esteemed him not. Surely he hath borne our griefs and carried our sorrows, yet we did esteem him stricken, smitten of God, and afflicted. But he was wounded for our transgressions, he was bruised for our iniquities. The chastisement of our peace was upon him, and with his stripes we are healed. Are we like sheep, have gone astray? Have we turned everyone to his own way? And the Most High has laid on him the iniquity of us all. He was oppressed, and he was afflicted, yet he opened not his mouth. He is brought as a lamb to the slaughter, and as a sheep before her shearers is dumb. So he opened not his mouth. He was taken up from prison and from judgment. And who shall declare his generation? For he was cut off out of the land of the living. For the transgression of my people was he stricken. And he made his grave with the wicked and with the rich in his death, because he had done no violence, neither was any deceit in his mouth. Yet it pleased the Most High to bruise him. He hath put him to grief. When thou shalt make his soul an offering for sin, he shall see his seed, he shall prolong his days, and the pleasure of the Most High shall prosper in his hand. He shall see the travail of his soul, and shall be satisfied by his knowledge. Shall my righteous servant justify many, for he shall bear their iniquities. Therefore I will divide him a portion with the great, and he shall divide the spoil with the strong, because he hath poured out his soul unto death, and he was numbered with the transgressors, and he bare the sin of many, and made intercession for the transgressors. Alright. So this was Isaiah 53. And he basically was asking who this was referring to, right? So yeah, fam, let's dig into it. Alright. So I'm gonna tell you straight up, it's not this guy. Right? Even though pretty much people want to allude to that. I mean, I honestly would say that's where the hijack begins. Right? That's where they try to hijack us, right? At that very point. You know what I mean? So I'm gonna show you why. So we're gonna scroll down, right? And we're gonna come to the etymology, right? And it says a typical Jew in Jesus' time only had one name, sometimes supplemented with the father's name or the individual's hometown. Thus, in the New Testament, Jesus is commonly referred to as Jesus of Nazareth, right? Jesus' neighbors in Nazareth referred to him as the carpenter, the son of Mary and brother of James and Joseph, right? And Judas and Simon, the carpenter's son, or Joseph's son, right? And John, the disciple Philip, referred to him as Jesus, son of Joseph from Nazareth. It says the name Jesus is derived from the Latin Isus, right? Or Isus, right? Of the transliteration of the Greek Isus, right? The Greek form is a rendering of the Hebrew Yeshua, right? A variant of an earlier name of Yeshua, right? Or Yahshua, right? In English, Joshua. So, it says the etymology of Jesus in the context of the New Testament is generally given as Yahweh is salvation, right? So, we already know that this is the hijack, right? But not only is it the hijack, I mean, they tried to get away with something very crazy. Alright? So we're going to stick with Joshua, right? Because we already have a Joshua. So since we got a Joshua, we're going to rock with Joshua, right? We don't need a transliteration. But basically, their Jesus is Joshua, right? So let's dig. It says Joshua, right? It says the Most High is salvation, right? They want to put Jehovah, but we're gonna dodge the hijack, of course, right? It says son of Nun of the tribe of Ephraim, right? And successor to Moses, right? As the leader of the children of Israel. He also led the conquest of Canaan, right? So here we have the etymology, right, of his name, right? And he was a leader, right, of the Israelite people, right? And it says whose help, salvation, right, is the Most High, right? So they're telling you that Joshua's name means salvation, right? So with the help of the Most High, he was the salvation for the Israelites, right? Leading them into the promised land, right? From out the wilderness, right? During their exodus, right? Out of bondage, right? He let them out of bondage, right? Right after Moses, right? Moses died and Joshua took over, right? And he led the tribes of Israel into the promised land. Led them out of oppression, right? Salvation, right? So same thing, right? It's just the wiki for Joshua, right? It says that he was Moses' assistant and became the leader of the Israelite tribes after the death of Moses, right? His name was Hoshea, right? The son of Nun of the tribe of Ephraim. But Moses called him Yahushua, right? Or Joshua in English, right? The name by which he is commonly known. The name is shortened to Yeshua and Nehemiah, right? So we're talking about Joshua, right? It says the English name Joshua is a rendering of the Hebrew language Yeshua, right? Meaning the Most Highest salvation, right? It says the second name component may be read as Hoshea, right? The name used in the Torah before Moses added the divine name, right? So Moses added the divine name and made it Joshua, right? It says Jesus is the English of the Greek transliteration of Yeshua, right? With Latin, right? That's what it says, right? And it says in Greek, Joshua is called Jesus, son of Nave, right? To differentiate him from Jesus Christ. It says this is also true in the Slavic language following the Eastern Orthodox tradition, right? He's also called Jesus, right? Son of Nave, right? To differentiate him from Jesus Christ, right? So there's the separation, right? So this is where the hijack breaks off, right? Alright, so let's continue. Right? This is Joshua, right? It says his name is helped by the Most High, right? It says usually, right, Josu, right? But Jesus, right? It says identical, right? So, yeah, man, we can just see this is where they added their hijacking, right, for their translation. But it really means Joshua, right? And Joshua means, right, to be held by the Most High, right? That's what we're talking about, right? It says, at first named Hoshea, right, as we read, right? He was called by Moses Jehoshua, right, or Yahushua, right? It says Joshua first leaps into notice into the account of the defeat of the Amalekites, right, in the desert, where he leads the picked troops of the Israelites, right? Afterward, he appears successfully at the side of Moses as his servant, right? As the guardian of the tabernacle and as the zealous defender of Moses' prestige on the occasion of Eldad's and Medad's prophesying in the camp, right? It says that he is one of the spies sent to explore Canaan. Returning from this errand, it is he who, with Caleb, allays the apprehension of the excited people, bravely taking the risk of being stoned to death. For this fidelity, he and Caleb alone, out of all the Israelites 20 years old and upward at the time of this episode, are to enter the promised land. Alright? That's what we're talking about, right? We're talking about Joshua, right? It says, nevertheless, during the following 38 years of the desert migration, no further mention is made of him, right? But when Moses is apprised of his own impending death, Joshua is pointed out as the one man to carry to completion the great leader's unfinished task, right? It says Moses is bidden to lay his hand upon him, a man in whom is the Spirit, and thus to give him charge of his successor, which command is carried out. Joshua is to preside over the division of the land, but must keep the compact entered into with Reuben, Gad, and the half of Manasseh, right? It says God assures Joshua of success in the leadership, and he, as the designated successor, is with Moses when the great prophet addresses his last counsel to the people, right? It says at Moses' death, at Moses' death, Joshua was filled with the spirit of wisdom. Upon him devolved a twofold duty to conquer the land and to apportion it among the tribes. It says the Most High himself encouraged him to be strong and to cling to the law, which was never to depart out of his mouth. After enlisting the cooperation of the kindred East Jordanic tribes, his first concern was to spy out Jericho. Alright? And so on, right? It says, on receiving the report of his emissaries, he gave the necessary instructions for the crossing by the Israelites of the Jordan, right? Of what they call the Jordan, right? It says, with the Ark of the Covenant carried by the priest in the van on the 10th day of the first month and of the 34th year after the Exodus, the Israelites set out to conquer the land. Alright? It says the river miraculously divided as long as the priest with the ark remained in its bed, was crossed north of Adam. Alright? So, it said, here, right, that Joshua is called Jesus, right, son of Nave, right? So this is Nave, right, in Bible Hub, right? And it says anything convex or arch, right, as the boss of a shield, right? It says the eyebrows in eminent, right, place. It says it is rendered only in the plural, naves, right, meaning the centers of the wheels, right, in which the spokes are inserted, the hubs, right, used for the nave, hub of a wheel, right, the hub of a wheel, right. It also says navel, right? Hub or navel, right? The middle or body of a church, right? The middle or body of a church, right? The middle. Right? That's what we're talking about. It also says nave, right? In the Greek form, proper name for none. Right? None. Right? So we're talking about nave, hub of a wheel, right? Or none, right? See? Then Jesus' nave, right? Right? Watch. See? Son of Nave, right? Says Moses, right? Son of Nave, right? So we're talking about the hub, right? The navel, right? Navel, right? Nave. Here we have the hub of a wheel, right? Notice how it also gives us the central part of a church building, right? And go to images, right? Oh. And it gives us this, right? I mean, I don't know, fam. I mean, what y'all think, right? Because we're talking about naves, right? As in ships, right? But naves, right? Says the hub of a wheel. Says compare with navel, right? We compare with navel, right? And it's talking about the center point of a place, right? It says center, central point, hub, focal point, focus, nucleus, heart, core, right? Core. So none's name, right? knave, right? Said none's name, right? Means the central point of a place, right? So we're talking about Joshua, the son of the center, right? Or the focal point of the hub, right? The son of Nun, right? So I was like, Nun, and it made me wonder, man, like, I gotta know more about this, right? So, I dig into Nun, right? It says that, he's a grandson of Ammihud, right? And the son of Elishama, right? And the father of Joshua. It says Nun grew up in and may have lived his entire life in the Israelites' Egyptian captivity, right? Where the Egyptians made life bitter for them with harsh labor at mortar and bricks with all sorts of tasks in the field, right? And it made me think about, like, you know, how they're finding Egyptian artifacts in the Grand Canyon, right? So, it said that he spent his entire life, right, in the Israelites' Egyptian captivity, right? And then it says right here in Aramaic, Nun means fish, right? It says the Midrash, right? The Midrash, the son of him whose name was as the name of a fish, would lead them who are the Israelites into the land, right? And I was like, fish? This definitely has to be some hijack, right? Because I was like, whoa, I thought they kind of branched off, right? I mean, this was just my initial thinking. So I go ahead and I dig on it, right? Because this is Nun, right? And it says Nun equals fish or posterity, right? Father of Joshua, right? The successor of Moses, right? It says Nun, right? Nun, that's how you say his name, right? Nun, right? The father of Joshua, right? Nun or Nun, right? And it says fish, seated proceeding, right? The father of Joshua, the leader of Israel. And I'm like, fish, this shit don't seem right to me, right? Like, and it was actually quite funny because I'm like, well, then damn, everybody's a fish, right? But I noticed, I mean, Jesus Christ is a fish, right? And when we went, where was it? Right here, right? It said Joshua is called Jesus, son of Nave, to differentiate him from Jesus Christ, right? So I said, okay, they're gonna go with the fish here, right? So I'm like, but this is Nun. Why is Nun dealing with fish, right? So I click on this, and I see the root, right? The primitive root to his name, right? The primitive root, and it says to propagate, right? By shoots, figuratively to be perpetual, to be continued, right? And it says to sprout, to put forth, right? As long as the sun remains, his name shall flourish, right? It just means to be continued, right? To increase, right? To multiply, right? It says in its Syriac translation, in Chaldean translation, it is a fish, because the fish is being so prolific, right? Which is the hijack, because here it simply means continue, to increase, or propagate, right? It just means to resprout, right? So we're just talking about reproducing. So noon means to reproduce, right? We can take the fish out, right? Right? It says nothing here about a fish, right? So see, this has to mean fish in order for their Jesus Christ reference to work, right? But if we're just dealing with noon in its primitive root, right, what it really means in the primitive root, right, from the most ancient root, right, it just means to continue, right? To increase, to propagate, to reproduce, right? To be fruitful and multiply, right? That's what we're talking about, right? Now, it said that Joshua, right? Where is it at? Joshua being the son of Nun, right? Which differentiated him from Jesus Christ, right? He was also a part of the tribe of Ephraim, right? And so is his father, right? It says Ephraim was the second son of Joseph, right? And it says, as the second son of Joseph, right? He was the ancestor of Joshua and the son of Nun, right? The leader of the Israelite tribes in the conquest of Canaan, right? So Joshua and Nun, right, were from the tribe of Ephraim, right? So when we dig, let me see, is it right here? Right here, right? It says the book of Genesis related to the name Ephraim, right? To a Hebrew, right? To a Hebrew word for being fruitful, referring to Joseph's ability to produce children specifically while in Egypt, right? The land of his affliction. So Ephraim means to be fruitful. The same way it says here, right? To continue, right? To increase, to propagate, right? So Nun, right, is really the tribe of Ephraim, right? Or from the tribe of Ephraim. And their name only means to being fruitful, right? While in the land of their affliction, right? So when they told you that he was the son of Nun, right, to distinguish him, right, this is where the hijack breaks off. So they had to create this fish translation, right, to justify their hijack. As we look into it, well then damn, we remove it, right? Because we see clearly that it means to be fruitful, which is the same thing that Nun means, right? Nun being, right, the father of who? Joshua, right? So we continue, right? We're dealing with son of Elishama, right? So this is Elishama, right? And Elishama breaks down to my God has heard, right? And he is a son of David, right? Elishama, right? Whom God hears, right? So this would be Nun's dad, right? Son of Elishama, right? Elishama, right? My God has heard, right? So Nun, this would be Joshua's great-grandfather, right? And his name was people of glory, right? Or renowned, right? It says the father of the Ephraimite, Ephraimite, right? Chief Elishama, right? The father of Nun. Glory of people, right? Or renowned, right? So, this son of Nave, right? Which is the central point, right? The hub, right? The centerpiece. It made me think about Joshua being our centerpiece, right? Our hub, right? He's the one that gave the tribe the formation, right? The salvation that we needed, right? Our ancestors, right? It's the son of Nave, right? He was the son of the center, right? Of the hub, right? And we're dealing with his ancestry, right? His grandfather and his great-grandfather, right? People of glory and renown, right? My God has heard, right? So, while digging on Joshua, right, came across this, right? Bar Jesus, right? Bar Jesus means son of Joshua, right? It is also the name of a false prophet, an Israelite, right? They say Jew, but they mean Israelite, right? Otherwise known as Elymas, right? Who opposed Paul and Barnabas at Paphos, right? And Paul's judgment upon his false prophet, upon this false prophet, there is a play upon words. Elymas was full of deceit and not of wisdom. Bar Jesus, meaning is son of Jesus, had become a son of the devil, right? It says son of Joshua, right? Of Acts 13:6, right? So let's see. It says they traveled through the whole island until they came to Paphos, right? There they met a Jewish sorcerer and false prophet named Bar Jesus, right? Right? And it told you here that this was the son of Joshua, right? And I thought to myself, like, son of Joshua, this is getting interesting, right? Because now we're talking about Joshua had a son, right? So I did go on Bar Jesus, right? And it says, see elements, right? It says son of Joshua, right? And it keeps saying son of Joshua. It says the Elymas, the sorcerer, right, who met Paul and Barnabas at Paphos, right? Elymas is a word of Arabic origin meaning wise, right? And then it says Bar Jesus, right? A certain sorcerer, right? A false prophet, a Jew, right? Or Israelite, right? Whom Paul and Silas found at Paphos in Cyprus, right? In the train of Sergius Paulus, right? The Roman proconsul, right? It says the proconsul was a man of understanding, right? Of an inquiring mind, interested in the thought of magic and his times, right? Or of his times. It says this characteristic explains the presence of the Magos among his staff and his desire to hear Barnabas and Saul, right? It says Bar Jesus was the magician's Jewish name, right? His Jewish name, right? So when we say his Jewish name, it means son of Joshua. So we're talking about an Israelite, right? It says Elymas is said to be the interpretation of his name. It is the Greek transliteration of an Aramaic or Arabic word equivalent to the Greek magos, or from Arabic alama, right? To know is derived from alim, right? A wise man or learned man, right? So they use the son of Joshua, right? Or this Bar Jesus character to refer to as a sorcerer, right? Because him and Paul got into it, right? It says Bar Jesus, right? Son of Jesu or Joshua, right? It says as a sorcerer or false prophet, whom when Paul and Barnabas came into Cyprus was found in the company of Sergius Paulus and the Roman proconsul, right? It says he opposed Paul in it says what? He opposed Paul in his attempt to convert the proconsul, whereupon Paul, filled with the Holy Ghost, set his eyes on him and cursed him with temporary blindness, calling him son of the devil. And immediately there fell on him in a mist and maggots, to whom Bar Jesus bears a striking resemblance, is apparently the person mentioned by Josephus, right? It says, as Simon, a Jew born in Cyprus, who pretended to be a magician, right? One of the friends of Felix, the procurator of Judea, right? And employed by him to seduce Jerusalem, right? From her husband, Azuzus, right? Azizus, right? King of Emesa, right? The same Simon Magus occurs in the story of Peter the Apostle, right? Of which the Paul story obviously forms a counterpart. New Testament critics therefore doubt the authenticity of the whole story, right? So him being him being this person that they hated on is least likely to fit, right? Since Paul was the person he was, right? So if he attempted to convert. Wait, what did he do? He opposed, right, the attempt for Paul to convert the proconsul, right? And then Paul was filled with the so-called Holy Ghost, right? And he cursed, right? He cursed him with temporary blindness, right? Calling him the son of the devil, right? This is what Paul did to Bar Jesus, right? Who was the son of Joshua. Now, this man, Bar Jesus, right? A son of Joshua, was an Israelite who tried to stop the conversion of this Roman proconsul from Paul. And then Paul cursed him and blinded him. What does that sound like is going on to you? It's hijack everywhere, right? I mean, he just straight up blinded Bar Jesus, right? Just straight up blinded him. Because Bar Jesus was trying to stop this Christianity shit, right? It just so happened to be that he was also a son of Joshua, right? It says Elymas, right? Also known as Bar Jesus, right? It says the apostles call him a magus, right? Which the King James Bible here translate as a sorcerer, right? So they gave him the name sorcerer, right? Even though Elymas means wise in Arabic and may be used to translate Magos, right? Bar Jesus means son of Joshua, right? Or son of Yahshua, right? In Hebrew, right? So, check out, man. You see these guys, right? And they roll up on the Israelite brother right here, right? Right? You see a little bit of the melanin, right? But watch. Watch this. I mean, he just got darker out of nowhere, right? Look, all in his face, right? And he's the real Israelite, right? By nature and everything, by blood and everything, right? He's the real Israelite, right? And this is the hijack, right? And the hijack puts the curse on him, right? And look, he goes blind, right? Can't see anything, right? I just thought that was crazy because they tend to want to make him darker, right? Out of nowhere. Yeah, fam. So, Bar Jesus means son of Joshua, right? That's what we're digging on, right? So we carry on, right? And they say that it means a wise man, right? It says the Arabic name of a Jewish magus, right? Or sorcerer, Bar Jesus, right? And it says his name is of foreign origin, right? Which means a wizard. And that's all they tell us, right? But we just got through digging on it. And it means son of Joshua, right? So how come they don't say it? They want to tell us foreign origin, right? But we got the origin, right? Son of Joshua. Because if Bar means son, right? And Jesus means Joshua, then Bar Jesus is son of Joshua, right? It's just simple. But they want to hijack, right? And they want to say Jesus Christ, right? So I continue to dig, right? And I came across this article, right? And I wanted to read it with the fam, man. check this out. It says Nathaniel and Bar Jesus, right? It says, at the time Jesus began his public ministry, he met an Israelite whom he very much admired, right? His name was Nathaniel, right? It says about 15 years later, the Apostle Paul met an Israelite, right? But for him, he had no admiration, right? His name was Bar Jesus, right? It says Nathaniel means the gift of God, right? Bar Jesus, the son of the Most High Savior, right? So both of these Israelites had splendid and significant names. Now it's crazy because I don't know if the person that wrote this article knew what they were actually saying, but I know the tribe will, right? So we're gonna carry on. It says that I am sure if we study carefully the Bible stories of these two men, we shall learn that God has in them a lesson for us, right? It says the Most High's dealings, or the Lord's dealings with Nathaniel, are recorded in John 1, right? 47 to 50, right? Which we quote. It says, Jesus saw Nathanael coming to him and said of him, behold, an Israelite indeed, in whom is no guile. Nathanael said unto him, whence knowest thou me? Jesus answered and said unto him, before Philip called thee, when thou wast under the fig tree, I saw thee. Nathanael answered him and said unto him, Rabbi, thou art the Son of God, thou art the King of Israel. Right? Then it says that this is Paul's dealings, right, with Bar Jesus, right? It says, and when they had gone through the isle unto Paphos, right, they found a certain sorcerer, a false prophet, a Jew whose name was Bar Jesus, right, which was with the deputy of the count of the country, Sergius Paulus, right, a prudent man who called for Barnabas and Saul and desired to hear the word of God. But Elymas the sorcerer, for so is his name by interpretation, right, only by interpretation, withstood them seeking to turn away the deputy from the faith. He tried to turn the deputy away from the faith, right? From the faith of Paul, right? Bar Jesus tried to turn the deputy away from the faith of Paul, right? Then it says, Saul, who was also called Paul, filled with the Holy Spirit, right, set his eyes on him and said, O full of subtlety, right, guile and mischief, thou child of the devil, thou enemy of all righteousness, wilt thou not cease to pervert the right ways of the Lord? And now behold, the hand of the Lord is upon thee, and thou shalt be blind, not seeing the sun for a reason. And immediately there fell on him a mist and darkness, and he went about seeking some to lead him by the hand. Then the deputy which he saw was done believed, being astonished at the doctrine of the Lord. So, I mean, call me crazy, y'all, but it seems like this Elymas, or this sorcerer, right, or this Bar Jesus character, he seems to be an allegory for the nation of Israel. He seems to be an allegory, right? A metaphor. As the prisoners of Rome, right? This nation of Israel, right? This was the nation of Israel as prisoners. And I believe that this Bar Jesus was the representation, right? The son of Joshua, right? The tribe of Ephraim, right? Who was snatched away, right? It says Nathaniel, right, came from up under the fig tree. The fig tree speaks of the nation of Israel. right? It says Nathaniel was an Israelite, right? In whom there was no guile, right? We have learned that his name means the gift of God, right? Then they say right here, right? It says Bar Jesus, right? Bar Jesus had a good name. The child of Jehovah's Savior, right? It says Israel was the child of Jehovah's Savior, created by Jehovah God for his glory, right? It says, but instead they did what Bar Jesus endeavored to do with Sergius Paulus, right? He endeavored to turn him away from the Lord, right? What happened to Bar Jesus? The very same thing that has happened to the nation of Israel. Paul said to Bar Jesus, thou child of the devil, for all subtlety, right? This word subtlety is the same Greek word as the word translated guile, right? Thus we see the contrast between Nathaniel and Bar Jesus, right? It says in Bar Jesus all guile, in Nathaniel no guile, right? Bar Jesus represents Israel until the Son of Righteousness shall rise with the healing of his wings. They shall then say to that Son of Righteousness, thou art the Son of God, thou art the King of Israel, right? Then in Israel will be no guile, right? And they say this is backed up by Ezekiel 36:25, right? But this Bar Jesus, right, and Nathaniel, right, these two being the comparisons, right? And yeah, fam, it just really made me think of that representation. You know, I don't really rock with the New Testament at all, but it seems like they're hiding some drop in here, right? Especially dealing with this tribe of Ephraim and this Bar Jesus being a son of Joshua, right? I mean, it seems like this is the missing remnant, right, that we're talking about, right? Right here in history, right? So I checked out Nathaniel, right? And it says that it is a given name, right? Derived from the Greek form of the Hebrew word Nathaniel, right? Meaning God has given. So if you'll notice, man, the more homework you do with this Old Testament, you'll see that the New Testament is just completely hijacked, man. I mean, completely. They just took everything and ran away. Alright? It also says that its meaning is gift from God, right? This Nathaniel, right? So Bar Jesus being the son of Joshua, alright? And Nun, right? The father of Joshua, right? Nun being, or his name meaning to continue to increase, to propagate, right? To reproduce, right? And Ephraim, right? Being a word for being fruitful, right? So we're talking about the son of Joshua, right? And Nathaniel. Now all these names, right? They have a message with them, right? And they're for clues, right? And when we were reading Isaiah 52, they said that the Most High's salvation was coming, right? And it was giving us a clue on how to identify it, right? And a lot of people recently been touching on this Isaiah 53 and trying to figure out who it's in reference to, right? So I basically had a suggestion, right? An idea, right? And start right here at Isaiah 7. I'm going to read it straight through. You guys follow along. We in Isaiah 7, verse 1. And it came to pass in the days of Ahaz, right, the son of Jotham, son of Uzziah, right, king of Judah, that Rezin, the king of Syria, and Pekah, son of Remaliah, king of Israel, went up toward Jerusalem to war against it, but could not prevail against it. It was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim, right? And his heart was moved, and the heart of his people as the trees of the wood are moved with the wind. Then said the Most High unto Isaiah, Go forth now to meet Ahaz, thou and Shear-Jashub, right, thy son, at the end of the conduit, right, of the upper pool in the highway of the fuller's field, and say unto him, Take heed and be quiet, fear not, neither be faint-hearted for the two tails of these smoking firebrands, for the fierce anger of the Rezin with Syria, and of the son of Remaliah. Because Syria and Ephraim and the son of Remaliah have taken evil counsel against thee, saying, Let us go up against Judah and vex it, and let us make a breach. Therefore in us set a king in the midst of it, even the son of Tabeel. Thus saith the Most High God, It shall not stand, neither shall it come to pass. It says, For the head of Syria is Damascus, and the head of Damascus is Rezin. And within 65 years shall Ephraim be broken, that it be not a people. And the head of Ephraim is Samaria, and the head of Samaria is Remaliah's son. If ye will not believe, surely ye shall not be established. Right? It says, Moreover, the Lord, or the Most High, spake again unto Ahaz, saying, Ask thee a sign of the Most High God, ask it either in depth or in the height above. But Ahaz said, I will not ask, neither will I tempt the Most High. And he said, Hear ye now, O house of David, is it a small thing for you to weary men, but will ye weary my God also? Therefore the Most High himself shall give you a sign. Behold, a virgin shall conceive and bear a son, and shall call his name Emmanuel. Butter and honey shall he eat, that he may know to refuse the evil and choose the good. For before the child shall know to refuse the evil and choose the good, the land that thou abhorrest shall be forsaken of both her kings. It says, The Most High shall bring upon thee and upon thy people and upon thy father's house days that have not come, from the day that Ephraim departed from Judah, even the king of Assyria. And it shall come to pass in that day that the Most High shall hiss for the fly, that this is the othermost part of the rivers of Egypt, and for the bee that is in the land of Assyria. And they shall come and shall rest, all of them, in the desolate valleys and in the holes of the rocks, and upon all the thorns and upon all the bushes. In that same day shall the Most High shave with a razor that is hired, namely by them beyond the river, by the king of Assyria, the head and the hair of the feet, and it shall also consume the beard. And it shall come to pass in that day that a man shall nourish a young cow and 2 sheep, and it shall come to pass for the abundance of milk that they shall give, he shall eat butter, for butter and honey shall everyone eat that is left in the land. And it shall come to pass in that day that every place shall be where there were 1,000 vines at 1,000 silverlings, it shall even be for briars and thorns. With arrows and bows shall men come thither, because all the land shall become briars and thorns, and on all hills that shall be digged with the mattock, there shall now come thither the fear of briars and thorns, but it shall be for the sending forth of oxen, and for the treading of the lesser cattle. Alright? So that was Isaiah 7, right? And more specifically, the sign of Emmanuel, right? So, that made me want to dig on it, right? So Emmanuel, right? It says God is with us, right? Or God with us, right? It says there's a Hebrew name, right, which appears in the book of Isaiah, right, as a sign that God will protect the house of David, right? It says that a virgin shall be with child, right, and shall bring forth a child, and they shall call his name Emmanuel, right, as a prophecy of the birth of the Messiah and fulfillment of the scripture in the person of Jesus, right? But if we know that Jesus is Joshua, and the son of Joshua is Bar Jesus, I mean, hey, right? So, we get the summary, right? And it says that this is the Syro-Ephraimite war, right? Which saw the kingdom of Judah pitted against two northern neighbors, right? The kingdom of Israel, called Ephraim in the prophecy, right? And Syria, known as Aram, or Aram Damascus, or Syria Damascus, right? It says Isaiah 7:1-2 tells how the kings of Ephraim and Syria attacked Jerusalem when Ahaz refused to join them, right, in their anti-Assyrian alliance. It says Ahaz wishes to attack Assyria for help, right? But Isaiah, at God's command, takes his son, Shear-Juhasha, right, a symbolic name meaning a remnant shall return, right, and assures Ahaz that the two enemy kings will not succeed. Alright, so it says Isaiah tells Ahaz of the apparent sign by which he will know this is a true prophecy. A young woman will give birth to a child whom she will name Emmanuel, right? Another symbolic meaning, God is with us, right? And the lands of the two kings you dread will be laid waste before the child is old enough to reject the wrong and choose the right. Alright? So, when we go here, right, we dig on Emmanuel, right? And it says it's the Greek form of Emmanuel, right? It says God is with us from Immanuel, right? Or Emmanuel, right? With us from I'm with, right? I'm means with, right? I'm, right? And then the L equals God. So Emmanuel, right, with us is God, right? With us. With us, as in with us is in the nation of Israel, right? So we had another meaning right here, right? Isaiah's son, right? Whose symbolic name means a remnant shall return, right? So I believe these signs right here are parallel with ours, right? With times that we're in right now, right? It says that it is first mentioned as the son of Isaiah, right? His name means the remnant shall return, right? And it was prophetic in offering hope to the people of Israel, although they were going to be sent into exile and their temple destroyed, right? And it says God remained faithful and would deliver a remnant, right, from Babylon and bring them back to their land. Alright? So this name was a prophetic name that meant that a remnant will return. Right? And this is Isaiah's son, right? So this was code, right? A sign for when you saw this name to look out for the remnant returning, right? Here's another one, right? It says Maher Shalal Hashbaz, right? Maher, right? Shalal Hashbaz. It means hurry to the spoils, right? Or he has made haste to the plunder, right? And this was the second prophetic name of the child, right? And it says, I went into the prophetess, and she conceived and bore a son. Then said the Most High unto me, call his name, right? So it says the child of Maher Shalal Hashbaz is the second prophetic name child after the birth of Emmanuel, traditionally understood as the son of Abi, the bride of King Ahaz, right? The future king Hezekiah, right? It says the name, right, is a reference to the impending plunder of Samaria and Damascus by the king of Assyria, Tiglath-Pileser, right, the third. So this is the warning sign, right, that basically they were about to be rounded up by Tiglath-Pileser the third, right, and taken away, right, and shipped somewhere else, right? Right? So this is what we're digging on, right? Tiglath-Pileser the third, right? It says that he subjugated much of the Near East region, right? Y'all can go ahead and dig on all that, right? Israel being a part of it, right? Judah being a part of it, right? Tiglath-Pileser the third did this to everybody, right? It was it says Pekah had allied with Rezin, right, king of the Arameans, against Ahaz, right, of the kingdom of Judah, who responded by appealing for the Assyrian monarch's help with the temple gold and silver, right? Tiglath-Pileser answered swiftly. He first marched his army down the eastern Mediterranean coast, taking coastal cities all the way to Egypt, right? This cut off his enemies' access to the sea, right? Once this was achieved, he returned to the northern kingdom of Israel, destroyed their army, right, and deported. He deported, right, the Reubenites, the Gadites, right, and the people of Manasseh, right, to Halah, Harba, Hara, and the Gozan River, right. He then installed an Israelite puppet king, Hoshea, right, in the place of Pekah. Alright, so we talking about deportation, man, and right now, I mean, like Brother Lex Will mentioned, you know, Trump is low-key this Pizler the third, right? This Tilglyph Pizler the third, that's who Trump is, right? He's on this mission to deport everybody, right? I mean, as you see right here, he destroyed their army, right? And then deported them, right? He deported them. Alright, so that's who Tilglyph Pizler III was, right? So, this long ass name right here, right? It is said to be a prophetic name or title, right? Which occurs in Isaiah 9:6, right? It is said to be interpreted as wonderful in counsel is God the mighty, the everlasting Father, and the ruler of peace, right? And the ruler of peace. So these are three signs, right, that are to come, right? The three things to look out for, right, by name, right? These prophetic children, right? And it made me think, you know, if this was the warning dealing with Tilglyph Pizler III, right? And we're starting to wake up as Yisrael, right? And we're learning that we are autochtons, right? And that this land is ours, right? Because we are indigenous, right? The copper-colored people of America, right? Of the copper-colored races, right? Then, I don't know, this book of Isaiah is starting to feel like it fit, right? So I did some digging, and I look up Emmanuel, right? And it says that Emmanuel, right? God with us, right? Or God with us, or with us is God, right? Now, they want to tell us it means virgin, right? But we're going to dig on that soon, right? They want to tell us it's this, but we already knocked this off, right? We already X'd off that, right? It says, it means that with us is God, right? A type name of Isaiah's son, right? It says God with us, right? It says it is the prophetic name of Isaiah's son, right? And then they want to add the hijack here in parentheses and say born of a virgin, right? Let's dig on this, fam. Right? Let's dig. Let me see what we got right here. Is this where I want to? No. So we go here, right? And Ein pops out, right? Ein. And I mean, if you're like me, you read it Ein, they want to say Eem, right? But I read it Ein, right? And then it says it's from this, right? And then I see a man, right? Amen, right? And they want to say it means to dim, darken, to grow dark, right? To dim, eclipse, right? To be held dark, right? To be dim, to grow dark, right? It says to associate, right? By implication, to overshadow, by huddling together, right? But the main root says to collect, to join together, right? to join together, a people, right? To join together, right? They're talking about a people that should join together, right? So when the people comes together, you get this am, right? Which is crazy because if we go back, right, as I was saying, it breaks down from I'm. So I see this as I am, right? I am, right? I am, just a continuous breakdown of I am, right? I'm and am, right? Am, right? Which means to come together, right? So if Emmanuel means that God is with us, or with us is God, right? And we're talking about us as in his children, right? Israel, right? So he's telling us that if we come together, right, after these signs, right? Right? After these signs, right? The remnant shall return, right? If we are the remnant returning, right? Then these are the signs, right? So if we come together, right? Then the Most High, right, has to be with us in the form of Emmanuel, right? Or I am, as the sons of Joshua, right? Right? As this nation of Israel, right? As Israelites, right? I mean, mind you, they want to tell you that virgin, right? So we're here at virgin, right? Alma, right? Virgin, young woman, right? Of marriageable age, right? Made or newly married, right? It says there is no instant where it can be proved that Alma designate a young woman who is not a virgin. The fact virginity is obvious, right? So they really want us to fall for this virginity thing, right? But here it just simply means damsel maid, right? Or virgin, right? It says a girl of marriageable age, right? A girl of marriageable age, right? Used of a useful spouse recently married, right? It says the notion of unspotted virginity is not that which is the word of conveys for which the proper word is. So virginity is not necessarily a part of this, because this just means what? A young woman, right? Or a person of marriageable age, or a maid, right? LM, right? Which is a young man. So we're just talking about unmarried people, right? With no attachments, not necessarily virgins. Now I know people would like to think as, you know, their partners as virgins, but it don't always come that way. And to superimpose is to force their hijack, right? And when we're dealing with I am, right? I am, right? I'm, right? I'm, right? Talking about am, right? That I am, right? Heya, right? Heya, right? That I am, right? I mean, I didn't think that this is no coincidence, right? I'm, right? then you get I am, right? But alright, we're gonna carry on, right? So this is virgin, right? Now virgin comes from 1200, right? It means unmarried or chaste woman, right? Noted for religious piety, right? It says having a position of reverence in the church, right? And it was supposed to be for fresh and unused, right? A maiden or unwedded girl or woman, right? It says, or a marriageable girl, right? Also meaning to be naive or an inexperienced person, right? So it doesn't necessarily hint at virgins, right? But just to knock that out the ballpark, right? This is Virgo. See? And Virgo's from 1000, right? We're dealing with the constellation, right? Which means virgin, right? A person being born under the sign of Virgo. So we know when they say virgin, they really mean Virgo, right? And we are hijack free, right? So Emmanuel, I don't think was coming from no virgin unless the virgin, right, had nothing to do, right? It says a virgin, right here, shall be with child. So if we're talking about virginity, then I believe we're talking about this generation that's awakening, having no marriage to anything foreign, right? No other God, no other religion, right? No power above that power, which is the Most High, right? None before him, right? So we're gonna continue out, fam, right? And I mean, if we're talking about Emmanuel, right, we got to be talking about the Israelites, right? Because only the Israelites can do this, right? So it made me think, if his name broke down to I am, right, in my opinion, right, Emmanuel, right, to I am, right, then the nation of Israel, we have to be a part of that as well, right, within our names, right? So as we know, who the Israelites are, right? The descendants of Jacob, right? The descendants of Jacob, right? People who are called Israel, right? And when we get Jacob, right, we get hill holder or supplanter, right? Hill catcher or supplanter, Jacob, right? Taking hold of the hill, supplanter, right? Layer of snares, right? And I want y'all to pay attention to the name, right? So here we got Yaakov, right? Now I got here because they say Jacob's name means to prevail, right? To prevail against, right? He prevailed, right? Against his wrestle, right? Where is it at? Right? It says the name Israel first appears in the Hebrew Bible, right? It refers to the renaming of Jacob, who, according to the Bible, wrestled with an angel, right? And him blessing who gave him a blessing and renamed him Israel, because he had striven with the Most High and with man, and he had prevailed, right? So I looked up prevail, right? And I saw Yaakov, right? Now keep in mind, we digging on the root of his name, right? This is a supplant, right? Take by the heel, right? Supplant. And the supplant, right, has that root, right? The primitive root, right? Which is stuck right there in his name, right? Along with what I think Yaakov, right? Alright? Prevail and supplant, right? Supplant, properly to swell up, out or up, used only as a diminutive, right? To seize by the heel, figuratively to circumvent, as in tripping up the hills, right? Also to restrain and take by the heels, stay, supplant, earthly, right? It says to come, or it says to be behind, right? To come from behind, right? To come from behind, right? To come from behind. So, yeah, this is the definition they want to stick us with, right? And I was like, we're gonna keep going, right? So, turn this down real quick for y'all, right? And, just listen to the sounding of the name real quick, right? One more time.
Strong's H3201. Yahoo.
Right? And he's gonna do this one, right?
Strong's H3290. Yaakov.
Right? Do it one more time.
Strong's H3290. Yaakov. Strong's H3201. Yahoo.
Alright, so it sounds similar, right? So I got like prevailed, right? Prevailed, Yaakov, right? Yaakov, right? And the Most High was telling us to prevail, right? This is supplant. It says to trip up, overthrow, defeat, dispossess, right? It says to trip up, overthrow, drive out, absurd, right? Replace one thing with another, right? It says to overthrow from assimilated, right? Form of sub, under, right? It says the sole of the foot. So the Most High is telling us, man, in my opinion, right, that if we come together, right, as one, right, under the name of Jacob, then he will be with us as the nation of Israel, right, as these tribes of Israel, right, of Israel, right, because as a supplanter, right, I mean, that's basically what the word is telling us, right? We was meant to kick somebody's ass, right? I mean, that's what this is telling us, right? With the sole of your feet, right? You are meant to drive out and overthrow, right? To dispossess, right? To take away what they took. But we got to do it together, right? The name is in Emmanuel, right? God is with us, right? I am, right? He is with us when we come together, right? To supplant, right? And we will prevail, right? See? Right? Israel, right? God prevails, right? It says Yisrael, right? Is breaking down, right? A contender, right? Soldier of God, right? To fight, right? See, we're meant to fight, right? Fight back, right? To return from after exile, right? The name of a nation after the return from exile, right? And MLK said you were exiled on your own land, right? So this is it, right? Right? The root, right? The primitive root, Sarah, right? Sarah's the primitive root, right? Now isn't Sarah the wife of Abraham, right? It says contend, have power, contend with, right? Persist, exert oneself, preserve, right? To preserve, contend with, right? It says the root to prevail, right? It says to have power, right? Sarah is to have power, Sarah, right? To place in a row, right? To set in order, right? To set in order, right? To be the leader, to be the commander. We're talking about Sarah, right? Sarah, right? Sarah, right? As the root word to what? Israel, right? But we're talking about Abraham's wife, right? Your power, right? We're talking about the root. He said it would be a root, right, of the virgin, right? Right? But we're talking about Sarah right now, right? Who brought forth a child, right? Right? It says Sarah. The biblical name of Abraham, mother of Isaac. It literally means princess, right? But we just saw it means power. It means power, man. We are each other's power, but only in unity. Once we unite, right? As Israel to form Emmanuel, to be that supplanter, right? The sole of the foot, right? Right? The supplanter, right? We're talking about Jacob, right? We're talking about the nation of Jacob, right? The nation of Israel, right? The supplanter, right? The Most High is telling us what? That we fight, right? That we contend, right? That we're soldiers, right? Most High is telling us we're supposed to kick some ass, right? That's what we're talking about, right? This is Sarah, right? Now let's dig this. It says Saracen, right? In Arab, right? Non-Christian, heathen, pagan, right? It says Eastern, right? East, right? And the sunrise, right? It says in medieval times the name was associated with that of Saracen. This is about you, fam. as the nation of Israel. And all these hijacks just came in and added their version on. But I mean, here we're looking at it, right? Saracen, right? Now we know an Arab cannot be a Saracen if it's linked to Sarah. But you can, right? As a son of Jacob, right? As a daughter of Zion, right? The daughter of Israel, right? Saracen, right? Saracen, right? A large sandstone boulder, right? Saracen stone, Saracen stone, right? From Saracen, right? In the old sense of pagan and heathen, right? It says the same word is applied to the ancient leavings outside the Cornish tin mines, also known as Jew pits. Those being the terms that came to mind once to describe any ancient features based on the Bible. So how did we get Jew pits from Saracen, right, fam? Well, I'm going to show you how. Because we're talking about Sarah, right? Sarah means what? Where we at? Sarah means to have power, right? And Sarah's the biblical wife of Abraham, right? So as her descendants, right, you will be Saracens, right? Which is why they conquered you, right? Talking about that Roman church, right? And this is the Saracen stone, fam. This is the Saracen stone, fam. This was your power. Some whack ass pictures, but this mainly was the point, right? Saracen stone, right? It says the builders of Stonehenge used these stones, right? It says for the hill stone, right? And Saracen circle uprights, right? And many other megalithic, right? Something to think about, fam. Right? I mean, Emmanuel, right? God is with us, right? So if we do this, right? This unity thing, right? We come together, right? Then Emmanuel will be with us, right? As we get ready to be that supplanter, right? Kick that ass, right? Right? Sole of the foot, right? To overthrow, right? Drive out, right? Jacob, right? As Israel, right? Getting into y'all soon, fam. Hope everybody's doing well. Hope everybody's doing alright. I hope this was informative. Getting with y'all soon.